In this video, I'm going over a companion planting experiment I did with a few interesting different crops, right? Ones that you don't commonly hear of, but I'm still able to get an edible yield of food out of these plants. And these plants really seem to do really well together, and this is definitely one companion planting that I want to expand upon for efficient polyculture food production heading into the future. We are looking at this bed that I companion planted. I have a bunch of Lunchbox peppers that were initially decapitated pretty severely by a groundhog earlier on in the season, so I gave these guys a shot. So I did 2 rows of peppers, and in between I planted this other plant that you're not usually going to see in a garden, but it's a really neat plant. I intend to do a video on this plant specifically in the future, but right now I'm talking about this companion planting. But this plant is called Devil's Claw, right? And it's a really interesting plant because it actually produces these trichomes on the leaves, and they produce like this sticky resinous type fluid, and you'll notice that actually a lot of insects will get trapped, like the small ones, right? Like the gnats and some of the midges and those types of things, aphids, get stuck, and they will actually die on the leaves. And then when it rains, some of these insects can be washed off into the soil, decompose, and add nutrients and nitrogen into the soil profile. So this plant, as far as we know, doesn't actively digest the insects. It just traps them, and then it I don't know if it's just relying on the soil microbiome to make those nutrients from the insects available, but the trichomes and the resin, it also seems to detract or deter herbivory, right? So like so far, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx this or anything, but like the rabbits and mice and stuff have not seemed to touch this plant at all, because this resin is somewhat bitter, kind of acrid a little bit. Kind of has, kind of a strong smell to it, especially when it's like hot and sunny. You can kind of smell it in the air when you get close to the plant, and it will produce these interesting looking seed pods that will eventually mature. This one's still like mid maturity, it's not fully mature. When it is fully mature, it will shed its outer green coating, and then the brown pod inside will actually begin to split open. It kind of looks like a miniature like elephant or mammoth face or something. Pretty neat. So here we have the flowers too. This one's kind of not fully open yet. I think it just started to open this evening. And then anyway, so I staggered the planting of the Lunchbox peppers and the Devil's Claw in both rows, and then in the middle row I planted the West Indian cucumber or something like that, I believe it's called. And this is a really cool understory plant too, because it doesn't like vine out like crazy and tendril plants and drag them down, not like the cucumber may do with certain plants in certain situations. This plant is a little bit smaller, but it's related to the cucumber, but it's smaller. It tends to hug the ground a little bit more, so it's a really cool like understory crop. And then it'll like produce these side tendrils too coming out. Like this is the main stem that actually hasn't grown a whole lot. But it will send out these side shoots right from the plant as well, and this is what the fruit will kind of look like. This is not full size, but they can be harvested at this stage and eaten, used just as you would a cucumber or zucchini. Really cool plant. I got this plant, by the way, from the Experimental Farm Network, and also actually I should note the Devil's Claw I also got from the Experimental Farm Network as well. Now what I would do is I would plant the Devil's Claw. If I did this companion planting strategy again, I would plant these Devil's Claw plants a little further apart, because they're kind of close to the peppers. Between each pepper is like about 1.5 feet, maybe a little bit more. And then in between I have like 2 devil's claw plants within about 6 or 7 inches. So what I would probably do is I would double the spacing. So I would probably just do 1 devil's claw plant in between each pepper plant, because especially if they're getting this size, they're just going to shade out the peppers. You might even be able to space the pepper plants out maybe 1 every 2 foot, and then same thing in the other row, and then do 1 devil's claw plant in between to give it even more space. That might be one thing to play with. Yeah, nonetheless, I mean, this companion planting seems to be working out very well. The devil's claw seems to vary greatly in size, right? Like these 2 devil's claw plants are really small. These 2 are humongous. You know, this one's huge, this one's small. Some of that might be hashed out in years to come with, you know, selective breeding and what plants survive on the landscape and are best suited. Because this plant the devil's claw is native to North America. I think it's more native to like the southwest area on the continent, but up here, up northeast, it seems to grow very well. It does very well in droughty conditions. We've had pretty droughty conditions this year all through July, and you know, this plant is one of the last plants in the garden to show signs of wilt. So it has a whole lot of promise in agriculture and farming and gardening as we continue to discover and appreciate the utility and the attributes that this plant has to offer. So I really like this companion planting strategy. Like I said, I would space these plants out a little bit more, like the devil's claw and the peppers. The West Indian cucumber is perfect for going in between and just kind of covering up the ground a little bit and producing edible harvest as well in the process. Right, here's another specimen of the fruit here. Yeah. And then I did probably like a few weeks ago, maybe almost a month ago, I did put down a layer of grass clipping mulch as well. It didn't do a whole lot of good because I put that layer down, but we didn't really get much of any rain, so the nitrogen, not so much of the nitrogen had much of a chance to go down into the soil profile. And then of course these glass bottles here upturned are that was the irrigation system that got utilized more earlier on in the season, and I've just kind of forgotten about it since. But these plants haven't seemed to complain a whole lot, so they're doing all right. And I did overseed this West Indian cucumber, and they and then the extra ones that came up I did transplant into a different area of the garden, and those are doing pretty well too. They're not necessarily quite as big as these because they've had to kind of reestablish themselves a little bit. So, but those look like they're going to pump out some fruit this year too in the next couple of weeks or so. So thank you so much for checking out this video on the companion planting strategy of the West Indian cucumber, the devil's claw, and the lunchbox pepper. These plants really seem to complement each other very well. The peppers grow and produce fruit. The West Indian cucumber spreads out across the ground, and the devil's claw grows up in between the peppers, and it can catch some insects, right? Some of which might be pests. Alright, so thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.